Jen, would you like to introduce our speaker today?
Thank you, President Dean. Howard Courtney is the founding pastor of Innisfil Community Church and a good friend of the Rotary Club of Innisfil. In 2021, Howard was recognized with the prestigious achievement, the Order of the Red Cross. And today he will be telling us a little bit more about that. Please welcome Howard.
Thank you, Jen. It's certainly my privilege to be here with the Rotary Club today. When former Mayor Barb contacted me and heard that I received the Order of Red Cross, one of the highest recognitions in the Red Cross, she asked if I would speak concerning my journey with the Red Cross. And I certainly was very happy to be able to do that. So my earliest involvement with the Red Cross began when I was in elementary school. In grade 7, I believe it was, I began helping out at the local blood donor clinics in Orangeville, my hometown. When we first got engaged there, we were helping the nursing staff to unload the beds and equipment from the trucks that they'd bring out to set up the blood donor clinics. And then we served refreshments when the blood donors went through the process. And as we served refreshments, we served cookies and Coke. And then when it was all over, we helped pack up the trucks, reload the trucks at the end of the evening. Now, of course, now we can't do any of that because it's all unionized and we can't touch any of the equipment. And of course, since then, the Red Cross is no longer doing blood. But that was my introduction to Red Cross. The rewards as a kid were awesome. The Coke came from the Orangeville Bottling Company, where I did work for a time, the Coca-Cola plant, and worked there during the summer. And at the end of the evening of blood donor clinics, if there was pop left over, we would be able to take a carton of Coke home, and that was just a great reward. But then after loading and unloading the trucks, on a really good night, one of those nurses would occasionally give you a good night kiss. And of course, that was really motivating for me at that particular time, got me hooked in as well. As time went on in the 60s, they asked me to manage the CELS program, which is a sick room equipment and loan service. It's a program that the Red Cross still operates in a variety of locations where we loan out sick room equipment. And then during the latter years of my high school in Orangeville, I took a St. John ambulance course, first aid course, and later switched to Red Cross first aid. And for a season before I left Orangeville, I was working part-time with the Orangeville Ambulance Service, just as a call-in extra body, and that worked for a period of time before I left Orangeville to come to Barrie. But that led me to become a first aid instructor, and subsequently a redundant position now as a Red Cross first aid examiner. In 1979, I moved to the city of Barrie and joined the Red Cross Council. Not long before the historic Barrie 1985 tornado, which left 8 dead, and that was mentioned, referred to earlier on by Al. I was part of the emergency services team during those operations, was one of the first Red Crossers on the site at St. John Vianney Church, where the initial command post was established by Fire Chief Jack McAllister, and in charge of our Red Cross team was Doug Skelding. He was our chair, and we were able to deliver the largest feeding service in Canadian disasters following that tornado, as we fed the Mennonite crews that came to town to help clean up the streets and open up the streets. And as others came to do the tornado cleanup, we served for the next several weeks, feeding those who came to help. Red Cross along the journey as well also provided a lot of opportunity for training over the years, and that was a real bonus for me as part of the emergency services team or the disaster response team. There would be a number of doors open for further training and education. With that, I was able to do a few courses in the now defunct Emergency Preparedness College in Arnprior, later located in Ottawa. One of those courses that I took was on exercise design. And of course, all the emergency services are required to do an exercise to make sure they function properly when the real thing happens. So that course on exercise design was served me well, as I was able to help coordinate the emergency exercise for our local services, Well, Chief Randy Smith, one of your former Rotarians, was our local fire chief. And that exercise brought together all of the emergency services and agencies, fire, police, paramedics, the county of Simcoe, the ham operators for communications, media, and we all met at our church site to demonstrate coordination of services and went through a particular scenario. Later in the 90s, I continued to be actively involved in Simcoe County's Barrie branch as a member of the branch council. And we continued hosting blood donor clinics in Innisfil. It's interesting that we were the ones that initially initiated blood donor clinics in Innisfil. Well, in Orangeville, we would drive our car around with speakers on the roof and announcing up and down the streets that a blood donor clinic was coming, please give blood. We couldn't do that as much as time went on. People didn't really want you to blast the streets with all of the sound equipment. So when we started them in Innisfil, we had rooftop signs and used them to announce the clinics and just drove around town with the signs on the roof of the car. In 2000s, I was actively involved in the SARS response in York region, overseeing the Red Cross component of operations, serving all of those who were quarantined in the area, delivering meals and other support. I went on, we were able to assist the development and implementation of a passport to emergency preparedness, personal preparedness. It was used to help people understand that they need to make preparations for up to 72 hours in preparation for readiness for any major event. In the 2010s, my involvement included the Virgilwood evacuations in Barrie. That's, if you remember back, that's where there was a cache of firearms, improvised explosive devices, and chemicals found in a backyard bunker on Virgilwood Street in Barrie. And since then, I've been continued to be involved in the ongoing leadership and training and service delivery of the Red Cross programs, including our local program, PDA, which is Personal Disaster Assistance Program. There have been many other PDA calls as we responded to local personal disasters, house fires. We don't have a lot of floods here in terms of displacement of people, but we were involved in cold water where there were spring floods, and that seems to be a fairly frequent occurrence. We were involved in earlier highway pileups on the 400 highway, where we would drive up and down on the closed highway, serving refreshments to emergency personnel, as well as those who would be stranded. A few years ago, I spent Christmas managing a shelter in Toronto during the famous Ontario ice storm that hit Ontario. And it just provides a lot of variety of activities. When I was thinking of some of the things that I've done, I'm often asked, why do people get involved in voluntary service? And I think there are several reasons why they do. And I think your organization, the Rotary here, obviously has a lot of wonderful people involved, and everybody seems to have a different reason for being involved. But I've broken it down basically into a few reasons. One of the most significant reasons I think we get involved is we actually think we can make a difference in our world. And I believe volunteers really do that. They make a difference. We do have an impact on the quality of life of others. We impact individuals. We may not make a big splash, but for that person, it has made a world of difference. We make life better for others. We help the most vulnerable. We invest in the present and in the future. And yes, as volunteers, we can and do make a difference. So that's, I think, one reason why a lot of people get involved, because they just want to make a difference. But a second reason people choose to volunteer, I think, is to gain experience in using our skills and abilities. I think, we don't like to be stagnant. We want to get out there and develop our skills and learn what's happening and use our abilities for something worthwhile. We want to put our experience to use. And so we choose to volunteer our time and our energy to impact others and to keep our skills current and active. The third reason many volunteer is because they've been affected or impacted by some specific cause. For example, a lot of people get involved in the Cancer Society because their family has been affected by cancer. And I can certainly go understand that. And my late wife died of cancer. And so the people that get involved are helping the cause to prevent the pain of many others on the road of life. A fire victim, for instance, that was helped by the Red Cross may choose to volunteer later with the Red Cross because they've seen the value of that themselves. And there are many great organizations that we can get involved with to make this world a better place. I just think in our community, Rotary Club is doing it right. You've got a strong team. Your eyes are always on others. You're always trying to do something in the community that is significant and important. And I think the Innisfil Rotary Club has done an amazing job over these years since you've established. Now, my life has been one of volunteering, and I'm the proud recipient of 2 Canadian medals for volunteering in Canada, and now, as already stated, a recipient of the Order of the Red Cross. But my primary reason for volunteer service flows from a 4th reason, and we don't normally talk a lot about this, but really it's a personal Christian faith experience, or a spiritual base is one of the main reasons why I am involved in so many areas. I look to the foundations of many of the organizations that have made a difference in our society, and they were founded from a faith-based organization. Organizations like the YMCA, of course, originally known as the Young Men's Christian Association, founded by strong Christian principles, yet embracing all members of the community. Organizations like the Salvation Army that serves all equally without prejudice or partiality. Institutions with a strong impact over the years were inspired by faith-based individuals. I look at places, universities like Harvard, named after a Christian minister. Yale was started by a clergyman. Princeton's first-year class was taught by Reverend Jonathan Dixon. And our own Ontario public education system was established in 1843 by Everton Ryerson, a Canadian Methodist preacher, minister. Habitat for Humanity, one of the largest charities in the United States, and present locally as well, internationally, provides housing for the poor, was founded by Millard Fuller, his strong, devoted commitment of faith-based humanitarian work. And then organizations like this one, the Red Cross Society, with a primary founder, a man of faith, Henry Dunant. Goodwill Industries was established by a Christian Methodist minister in 1902. And so as a Christian minister, I just feel like I'm in good company to be involved in volunteer organizations in our community to make a difference. And I'm so thankful for the opportunities that have been given here. And thank you so much this morning for the opportunity to share some of the work with the Red Cross. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you very much, Howard. Does anyone have any questions for Howard at all?
And President Dean, if I just may make a couple of comments.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the evening that Howard was presented with the Order of the Red Cross, there was a Zoom meeting, and there was a lot of people on that, people in the community, and I was very lucky to be on that also. Chief Fletcher, you were there. We all had a chance to say a few words, but the words and the comments from the people that know Howard and have known him with the Red Cross through all these years, it was absolutely amazing. Howard, you've accomplished so much. You've done so much, and it's all to do with helping people. And that evening, I don't think anyone who was on that meeting, that Zoom meeting, will ever forget it, because you're a gem in the community of Innisfil. My wife and I were commenting later that we don't realize how lucky we are in this community sometimes. It was a great evening. There was some higher ups in the Red Cross that made some speeches, and I was most impressed. I thought I knew all about you over the years, but I learned a lot more that evening, and it was just great to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Yeah, there's lots more that I could talk about Red Cross. The picture behind me our what we call our C-cans. We have already prepared and ready to move at a simple phone call when there's an emergency. And we have a trailer that would hold a mobile unit, would hold 50 beds, blankets, and everything needed to set up a shelter for 50 people. The C-cans behind us, I believe, are 200 bed units, so that if there's an emergency anywhere in the province, they simply call, and this particular C-can is shipped to that location and dropped off, and then our team goes in and sets up the complete shelter, all the beds, all the blankets, everything that's needed. It's a great system and works when needed. We had interesting. There was an apartment fire or a townhouse fire in the south end of Barrie a couple of years ago, a few years ago, and when they called to get the shelter for all of the individuals, that was supposed to be at the Allendale Rec Center, was a pre-assigned shelter. And as happens from time to time, when you go to activate these places, there's just a breakdown in the system, and it's not available, or the people aren't available. And so at that point, we were already active as Red Cross team, and there was nowhere to take these people. And so we offered our church for that, and indeed we transported them down to the church. We set up the shelter in the gymnasium of the church, housed them overnight, and it was a little embarrassing for the city of Barrie when they've got such facilities in town not to be able to handle their own at the time. And they came back on the day after to check the shelter, and we were just so happy to be able to provide that service for them. Some of you will remember years ago there was a train derailment in Lefroy, and we had set up our church again as a shelter and assembly area as well for that. And fortunately, it didn't escalate, and so we didn't actually use the facility, but it was set up and ready to go for that particular event as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to be used as a volunteer, and to get together with the experience of doing those kinds of responses.
Ann Smith, you were going to say something?
Yeah, hi, thank you, President Dean. Howard, I'm always amazed at the stuff that you're involved in. I don't know how you have the time to run your ministry as well, because your church has so many organizations that are really important to the town of Innisfil, and I just want to say thank you for everything you do for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Chief Fletcher.
Yeah, President Dean, good morning, everybody, and great to see you, Howard. I'm so proud to be able to say that I consider Howard a friend, and only been in the community here for 7 years myself, but got to meet Howard very early on. And I just want to share a couple of stories, if I could, President Dean, just to give you a bit about, for those that, I know there's many people on this call that know Howard quite well, but you know, Howard does so much in behind the scenes, as many people talk about, but you know, I'll share with you just a couple of things that was mentioned when he was on when his family shared on the Zoom meeting that Alice talked about. But you know, I almost feel like I need to deputize Howard, because I understand way back when he used to drive around the community with his flashing light on his truck, and was often first at many collision scenes long before our officers got there, and was always providing help to people and setting up traffic points and doing what he needed to do. So there is a uniform for you at some point, Howard. We'll see if we can get you deputized and join the service. But on a personal note, when I moved here, my brother-in-law, who's also a minister, was on his way to a family wedding that he was going to be officiating, and he arrived at our house here in Stroud. And as he was unpacking his bags to get dressed, he realized he'd left his ministerial collar and his garments back at his home, which was 2 hours away. And a quick phone call to Howard was, "Hey, you know, can you help us out? Do you have anything?" And he very quickly connected with some other people, and we tried to find somebody with the right size and the right that could help us out with an outfit and a ministerial collar. And as it turned out, we ended up cutting a margarine tub and making a plastic one that we stuff inside his collar just to officiate the wedding that day. But Howard was always a good friend, and a quick phone call away that we could make put me in contact with a bunch of people to help out a family when they needed. So thanks, Howard. You've always been a good friend, and I know just another little story. He showed up at our doorstep one day here at the police station with a gentleman that needed help, and Howard was doing whatever he could to help this guy, and finally shared with me. He said, "Chief, you know what? If we don't find a home for this guy, he's prepared to throw a rock through your front window so that he can get arrested and locked up so he has a place to stay tonight." So I know, Howard, we're doing a lot in the community to try and find help for homeless people, and there's just not enough supports there. So keep doing what you're doing, and thanks for joining us in Rotary this morning.
Thank you so much, Chief. It's great when we're doing service in the community like we do. It's just great to know that we've got a lot of partners that work together, and it's not any one of us that can do it alone. We do need the strength of the partnerships, and so thankful for the partnership with South Simcoe Police for sure.
Tim, go ahead.
Thank you, President Dean. So, Pastor Howard, the one thing I wanted to say, you gave 3 beautiful reasons for volunteering, and I 100% agree with them. There's a 4th reason that I would love to be able to offer to you, and that's actually inspiration. We are often inspired by others to volunteer. I remember as youth, it was my grandparents being involved with volunteer efforts. My grandfather going around at Christmas with helping the Salvation Army to deliver turkeys to families who needed it. I remember those moments, and they inspired me to a lifetime of volunteership. And I would honestly say, I think everybody on this call will agree with me, that you are a true inspiration to the community for your volunteer efforts. And your story, as it gets out there more and more, will hopefully drive the youth who need somebody to inspire them to volunteer. You're one of those people who give that reason. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Tim. Kind words.
Anyone else have any other questions? Barb, welcome.
Hi, sorry I'm late, and sorry I missed your talk, Howard. I was at another Rotary meeting. Although I did ask him to record it for me, and he promised me he would, so I'll watch it a little later. Well done. I just wanted to say, I've been around a long time in Innisfil as well, and I, like Chief Fletcher, have some personal interactions with Howard that made me know he was the go-to guy when there was a problem. And it was very early when in my political career, a young woman, and I don't even know if Howard remembers this, but a young woman with a brand new baby had no baby things. And she had no formula, she had no diapers, and she called me because I was a public official and thought I could help. And I wanted to, but I know that's a dangerous precedent to set on a personal level. And that was the first time I contacted Howard, and I didn't know I was really talking to the manager when I got Beulah first and asked to speak to Howard. But I was able to provide some funds so that they could be bought, because at the time the food bank and the clothing cupboard was not nearly as strong as it is today. And so it wasn't me who delivered it. It was Howard or one of his minions, and got it to this needy young mother and the baby who needed the things. But that's why I so readily support and send people to that organization, because sometimes you don't want to be the one helping your neighbor or something like that, but you want to go and make sure it happens. And that's the place you can go. And you can always trust Howard's judgment on evaluating a situation when he or one of his people are there, that they can say, yes, this is truly a person in need and we need to help them more, or here's a one-time help, now straighten up. And I know that happens too. So I'm so sorry I missed your talk. I know it was fabulous, and I look forward to seeing it this afternoon.
Thank you, Barb. Appreciate that. There are many times where we help people and some would question and say, well, you're giving stuff away to people who really don't need it. And I think it's so much better to err on the side of grace and mercy than to see somebody go without. And they're difficult decisions sometimes to know when to say no and when not to. But it's just great to be able to have the resources to be able to help whoever comes.